This session, I'll be giving you an overview of Dingo's latest product, Intelligence. Intelligence is a data analysis, insights, and reporting app. And you can get to Intelligence by going to app.dingotracker.com. To log in, go to that page and enter your user credentials that have been provided for Intelligence, or the ones that you use to access the Trakka desktop application. You will be presented with a screen like this, which will typically give you information about any new and recent features that have been added to the application. You have the option to click Got It, and you'll see this information again, or click Don't Show again, and you won't see any information until another new message is applied. For today's session, we'll be focusing on Intelligence, which is the option at the top. Click on there, and then you'll be presented with the main screen of Intelligence. The main screen provides you a listing of all the reports that are available. You can see down the left-hand side we have standard reports and premium reports. The list of these reports is changing constantly and being added to all the time. In the middle of the screen is the report body, and based on the selection on the left-hand side will represent the reports that you've selected. On the far right is a list of filters, and depending on which graphic, which table that you're looking at or which report, these filters will be customizable and show you exactly what you're looking at. Across the top you'll see some further slices that can control what you're seeing in the reports. The site slicer will have a listing of all sites you have access to your user account. You can select one or many sites depending on what's available, and the same goes for location. This is individual locations within a site. You can restrict the report down to just seeing data for one location. On this report we have a last 12 months. That's a filter for what information is being displayed. You have the option to change the contents of that, so you can customize the date range as you see fit. In this first report, the executive summary, you'll see there are 3 different pages: KPIs, open actions, and components at risk. So the first item here, selected KPIs, has a quick summary of some of the important KPIs that most of our customers pay attention to. Firstly being cost avoidance versus budget. So this is a breakdown of cost avoidance from installed components, from changed components, from breakdown avoidance for production savings, and breakdown avoidance for cost savings. And you'll see that breakdown here in this chart with a summary and the total in the middle. The middle chart is current component condition. It lists out the total number of components that are in normal condition, that are in warning condition, or in critical condition. So you can see what percentage risk you have at any one time. The third chart across the top, observation turnaround time. This is specifically aimed at fluid analysis, where you're sending your oil samples off to a third-party vendor to have tested and then sent back. It will display what the current turnaround time is and what the trend has been over the last 12 months. Down the bottom, 2 charts that are similar, showing what the trend of critical component value has been over time. So the dollar value of components that are in a critical condition and the dollar value of components that are in a warning condition. The next option in this report is open actions. And what that is going to give you is some charts that show you which actions are still currently open, that being in an accepted or recommended state. This chart on the right hand side lists them out by asset, and you can see which are accepted and which are recommended. On the left you can see them by priority, so we still have some here open from December 2021. The listing of the different priorities, so when you have multiple sites you'll see that there's potentially the same priority number listed because they have a different description. And then open actions by condition on the bottom, warning or critical, where they're open from, how long some of these have been open, and what condition they were in when they were sent. The last tab from an executive summary is components at risk. And so from the first tab we had a listing of the components that were in critical and warning and the dollar value. This is the specifics around those charts. So you have a list of all the components that are currently in critical condition, when the review was done, what their current age is, percentage of budget life, the observation type, and a number of information around why they are in critical condition. And the same goes for warning here. So a listing of those. Something that you can do with pretty much all of the charts here is the three ellipses on the top right of any chart or table. If you click on there, you have an option to export the data. And so you can click on that and it will present you with a number of different options of how you export the data. So pay attention to what it's asking here, and thus we'll spit that out into a Excel file so that you can do any further evaluation within Excel that you want. The next report in the list is asset health. And this is a high-level report that gives you a trend of the health of both your assets and components over time. So this first chart here on the left shows you, as you can see, the number of normal, warning, and critical assets over time. And once again, you can adjust the time period, the location, and the site that you're looking into. The one on the right is listed by component. So the difference here, component being something like an engine or a wheel motor or a gearbox, asset being a dozer, a truck, a ball mill. Only one component has to be in one of these conditions for the entire asset to be considered that. So you can see the vast difference between assets and components. Most of our customers pay attention to components and try and increase the percentage of normal and warning. Down the bottom we have component health by location, so just sort of showing you where by location the conditions are being set. This is by account of assets. We can look at it by value, so looking at a similar type of trends for both location and components, but this is by rebuild cost as opposed to just counting each component to be the same. And then the last tab on this report by observation type, you can start to see what the trend of observations coming into the system have been as far as normal, warning, critical over time. And then once again, those same observations, but this time by location. The third report in the list is called component health. And component health has been designed so that you can get a quick snapshot of what your current component health is. So you'll notice this one is very similar to what was on the executive summary. This time it includes some unrated components that are set up in Trakka but don't necessarily have any current condition monitoring data captured for them. And then on the right here we can see current condition for each component and their age when compared to budget life, what type of component it is. And if you want to restrict that down, you can come in here, and if you only want to see differentials, for example, that will restrict the list down just to differentials. And so it's much easier to come in here and get a quick fleet analysis if you set these up the way that you are interested in seeing things. Same goes from a filter perspective over here. You have a lot of different filters from a visual and a page perspective that will help you lock down exactly what you want to see before you can use some of the report exporting capabilities. On the bottom we have a table that lists out all of the information that's being shown up above. So if we just want to look at critical components, we can click on the critical slice of the pie, and then that will filter this chart down so that the criticals are highlighted, the rest of them are sort of faded into the background, and then below here we have all of the criticals listed. So a very quick way of getting a look at all the critical components within a fleet, and then you can quickly export these out if you want to do any more analysis. To get back to what normal is, just click in the outer space of that pie chart and it will bring everything back. The filters on the right hand side can be another way to quickly see what is important to each individual user. For example, we can filter on asset type. So if I was interested in just the graders, for example, I click on grader, and now I get a quick snapshot of the current condition, the age of my fleet, of the different components. I can see that there's a lot that have no data being captured, so I can evaluate why that is, and I can see the details down below. So the filters can become quite handy if you're trying to drill into a fleet basis or even down to a component profile basis. The next report on the list is review summaries. So every piece of information that comes into Trakka has a review performed either by a human analyst or by the rules engine in Trakka, and this is captured here. What you'll see on the left hand side is reviews by fault effect and condition, so you can see the fault effects listed down here and then the number of them performed over the last year by condition, normal, warning and critical. There are two other tabs here to look at this information, so we can look at it by asset type, and once again you can see split down by asset type, and we can also see it split by component type. So depending on what is most important to you, you can see a different way to look at the reviews being performed. On the right hand side we have reviews by observation type, so depending on what observations are being performed at site, this will be split out, and you can see how many mag plug inspections, visual inspections, filter inspections, fluid analysis you're doing, or any other types that are being performed. And then once again we have a table of that information. So depending, if we just want to look at September's fluid samples, we click on there, and then this table will be reflective of that information. So the highlighted parts of these charts will show you what proportion of those main charts they took up. To get back, just click on the outside of that chart. The next one is action counts. So in Trakka, not every review has an action, so now we're looking specifically at where corrective maintenance actions were created from those reviews. You can see here the top recommended actions. What were they? Were they warning or critical? And then we have a large number of tabs here to look at trends over time. So by priority, by status, whether they're accepted, closed, completed, recommended or rejected, by observation type, so the majority here are for fluid analysis, by condition, which ones were done for normal, warning or critical over the months, and then by site and by location. And so we can see different locations and how many have been performed. Once again, down the bottom we have another table that just lists out those details, so very quickly click into one of these charts and that will restrict the information that's shown on both the other charts. Going from action count, now we go to open actions. So those actions that are still in an accepted or recommended state, that haven't been closed or completed as yet. So you can see a trend of open actions by condition. You can also see a trend of open actions by priority. These are the ones that are still open. On the right hand side you can see another chart with a number of tabs. So this is open actions by fault effect. We have one by asset. This one can be very handy in monthly or weekly planning meetings to see if you have a PM coming up for a specific asset. You can see how many open actions they have. Click on it and down the bottom you will see specifically what those open actions are and potentially what needs to be done to correct those. We also have it by observation type and once again by location to see which locations have the most open actions. Another good way to really get into what corrective actions are required out in the field and to make sure that everything is under control. There is an option in this one to look at is overdue. So if you just want to see which ones are currently overdue, click on true and you'll see just the listing of those that have gone past the expected time frame when you would have expected those to be done. The last one in the standard reports is completed actions. So we've gone from open actions now to completed actions. So this is a look at all those actions that have actually been done in the field and some of the key metrics around those. So you can see we have two different ways to look at these, by review date or by completion date. So by review date, when they were created, we can look at them actions completed on time by priority. So we have true or false. Effectively, those in green were done within the time frame that site has set for each different priority, and then those in red were not. Same goes down here. That was by priority. This is by date. So looking at September, you can see that we had 49 that were completed but weren't on time, and 11 were completed that were on time. And then over to the right, we actually see what the time is that it's taking to complete these actions or to accept and reject those actions. And depending on the priority, 0, 1, 2 or 3, see what that trend looks like over time. We also have a details tab here which lists out all those completed actions. So if somebody wanted to export this and take a more deeper dive, or just look in here at specifically those ones that were done in September that were not done on time, you can quickly click in here and get all the specifics around the information that was attached to those. So that's completed actions. That is the listing of standard reports, and we'll now go into the premium report. The premium reports first start with a report called Component Life Achieved. And that's an analysis of all the components that have been changed in Trakka, looking at the reasons they were changed, how long they lasted as far as component age, when they were changed, and what percentage of budget life they achieved. And so you'll see the first chart is showing the split of reasons for removal, be that undecided, scheduled, failure, condition, other. So this brings up data integrity issues to the forefront so people can see how their component changes are being tagged. It's also possible to look at this not just by reason but by asset type, so we can see which assets are costing the most amount of money here, haul trucks, and then component types, engines, final drives, engine diesel. So once again it shows data integrity, making sure that we have standard naming conventions for the various component types. On the right hand side then, if you have multi-sites, you'll be able to see an analysis of each site side by side over as many years that you're interested in looking at. And you can do that as a component age, or you can do it versus budget. What's the performance versus budget? So once again, data integrity issues, looking and make sure you have the information correct. Same as other reports, you can click on anything here. It will limit what you see over here. It will also limit the list of component replacements down the bottom here. Once again, you can click on here to export the data if you're interested in doing that, to show all the component changes that have been recorded for that time period against that year. Filters again become important here. Lots of filters available from this page as far as reason for removal, asset type, dates, component types. All of the different charts have their own filters available. The next one we have is around breakdown avoidance. So breakdown avoidance is something that's captured in Trakka to attribute some cost savings to all the hard work that's going into correct component condition. So once again, this is something that's captured by fault effect. You can see the cost breakdown by fault effect. You can see it by asset type. And you can see it by component type. So very similar to the previous report. Over here you can see the breakdown avoidance savings by savings created date. So looking over the last 12 months, how many savings are being generated on it by created date, that's when the actual record for savings was created, or by review date, when the corrective action was put into place to actually go and do the work in the field to fix the problem. Different ways to look at the same information. Once again, down the bottom, a details table, so you can see the specifics about anything that you're interested in seeing from the top. On this report, we actually have a last month summary. So if you want to see it just for the last calendar month, you can see BDA savings by location. You can see it by site. You can see what the monthly BDA savings are by fault effect. And then over here, the top breakdown avoidance savings by actual component. See the information that's attached to them. Once again, that main details table is still down the bottom for the review. So depending on how you want to look at this, on a 12-month level or custom, or go down here to just the last calendar month, you can see this information that you want to see. And the final report that's currently in the system is component life savings. And so while breakdown avoidance is around correcting issues in actively running components, component life savings is about what are the savings you're achieving by running components and then changing them in at their maximum possible life without incurring additional rebuild costs. So this is a snapshot of what those savings are by reason for removal, by asset type, by component type. So if we want to look in at specifically the engines, we can see what the savings are over time for those engines. And then we have the information about each specific component replacement record here to look at the details. So if we saw something really big jump here, we might want to click on that and identify what's the reason for those savings. We can filter and sort these tables just like you can, say, an Excel table. So we can see what the savings versus budget values are do a descending order. You can see here we have one that's for $86 million. Obviously incorrect, didn't achieve 5 million hours. So these are the type of things that you now go back into Trakka and correct so that the reports are showing correct information. Obviously a simple, probably a meter issue, but those type of things can be very quickly identified with this type of reporting. We have both a savings versus budget and a savings versus baseline. Baseline being what were the component ages expected when Trakka and the Dingo programs were first implemented. Budget is obviously an ever-changing number, not necessarily always achievable, so we track both so they can get an idea of how their performance has improved since start of the project, or how's their performance versus the current budget or the budget that was in place at that time. So that's a quick overview of all the current charts and reports that are available within intelligence. We are adding new reports to this all the time. We're taking input from our customers as to what reports would make sense for them from a reporting standpoint in this type of product. So feel free to reach out to your account manager. And if you have any additional questions around intelligence, also reach out to your account manager or customer support at Dingo, and we can walk you through any specifics around the reports and answer questions as need be.